Well, well, well. Would you believe it? Sorry. I had a lot of puns ready, but I won't be needing them after Leigh Wood did indeed upset the featherweight world champion, given his shot 6 weeks' notice, then elevated to the headline act when Conor Benn contracted COVID-19. He took full advantage. He is now one of, at least, WBA's featherweight world champions, with a stoppage victory over Zhu Kan, dropped and then stopped the Chinese in the final round. This is After the Bell, coming to you moments after the final bell at Fight Camp, the first of three this summer. I'm Martin Domin, editor of Mirror Fighting. I'm joined by former world champion Barry Jones and by boxing journalist Declan Taylor. We will start with the main event, Barry. Leigh Wood, from the start, really impressed. And then got the job done.
He was fantastic. The difference was he went in full of confidence, and he went in with a guy with full belief he could win the fight, and you could see that from the offset. There was no tenderness in his work. He went straight to work straight away, and I just think when you fight a guy who supposedly has a tremendous work rate, though we never saw it tonight in Zhu Kan, the jab stops that, and whether Zhu Kan would have thrown lots of punches or not, he used the jab really well, Leigh Wood. It was solid behind it, and there was a solid right hand that followed it. And those heavy shots make you tentative to engage. And I think he did that early on. I thought he was fantastic. He didn't need the knockout. I've got to say this. I thought he was mile ahead. That's the way I saw it. I don't know how you guys saw it, but I thought he was a mile ahead. I thought he boxed tremendously well. But the knockout was just the icing on the cake. The stoppage was tremendous. And he's just been a transformed fighter. He really has. The fighter who lost to Jazza Dickens, wasn't the fight that we saw tonight. That's the truth. He's looked so much better. He really has. And who knows? Maybe we get to see him in a return for a world title unification against Jazza Dickens in the near future. How crazy would that seem when they box in that golden contract? You would never have thought you would have been in this position we're in now. But Leigh Wood was outstanding. I think tactically, technically, and everything, he was as good as he could be.
It's funny, at the start of the year, everyone assumed we would see Josh Warrington against Zhu Kan at some point. That was the fight to see at featherweight. And now, as you say, we could have a unification between Jazza Dickens and Leigh Wood. But that is, of course, for another night. Declan, Barry mentioned the sort of change. We saw it against Rees-Mogg the last time. And this was kind of just an extension of that.
Yeah, boxer size Ben does it again. I don't know. I think they obviously had a game plan, and the one thing with Kanju or Zhu Kan, whichever way it goes, is that I'm not claiming to be a huge expert on him, but when his name sort of cropped up a lot more linked with Warrington a couple of years ago, watched a lot of him, and he relentless volume puncher. There was none of it, and like Barry said, it was the jab, but also I don't know if they spotted it, but his guard's like this, and he's got his little gap where right down the middle in the tummy, and just sinking that jab to the body in as well. Not only to the head, but also he was sort of holding off sometimes with just literally keeping him away. But that one sinking it into the belly, the jab, was just unbelievable, crippling for him. And he just had, if a volume puncher is not throwing punches, he's doing nothing. And like Barry said, for me, he was not in the fight really. Like, he won by a mile for me. Without the stoppage, he was a handy 8-4 winner, something like that. And you have to give credit, obviously to him, based on the fact that, however long ago it was, he was losing to Jazz Dickens at York Hall. But the fact that he's turned it around with Davison, and also against Rees-Mogg, he was hurt bad. I think it was in like the 5th round or something, caught heavy. And Rees-Mogg, a good puncher as well, turned it around that night. Adjusted, stopped Mould emphatically, has come and won this fight on 6 weeks' notice. I think credit has to go to Davison and that team. And I tweeted it, but he hasn't lost a fight, or he hasn't had a losing fighter since 2016, August 2016, 5 years. And I think of all the fighters who have come through that, and people have hammered him a bit because he's never had, Josh Taylor's turned up, and Lee McGregor, great fighters already have turned up, Tyson Fury as well. But someone like Leigh Wood has come, and look at the improvements he's made, and look at where he's gone, the trajectory he's made alongside him. You have to give him credit. He gets hammered. I know he gets hammered, and I know for a fact he doesn't care about it, He gets hammered on Twitter, boxing Twitter. You know what it's like. But it's just a great story, remarkable win, and just an unbelievable performance. Really, I mean, Kanju was disappointing for me, but that's because of the performance from Leigh Wood. And that's why we love boxing, isn't it? Because nobody gave him a prayer. I did the boxing news preview this week. Said, how can he come and turn up and win on 6 weeks' notice against an established champion? Okay, not the number one champion, not the belt holder at WBA, but for most people in the top 5 at featherweight before tonight. And he's turned him over, like the dream performance, and then stopped him in the final round. Superb from Leigh Wood, and what a great guy as well.
I'm not too. Trainers getting loads of credit. I always say you're as good as your boxer, but trainers are worth their weight in gold, of course. And Ben's proved to be a fantastic trainer, tactically really, really astute, and you can see that in the game plans for all his fighters. But you learn so much around being around good fighters. That's why gyms have success. Also, the Calzaghe gym, as good as Enzo Calzaghe was as a trainer, the fact that Joe was so good, success breeds success. You see more with amateur clubs when you get a good fighter, and all of a sudden you get a plethora of champions that follow, and that's what happens. So being around good fighters makes you a better fighter, more than the trainer at times. But Ben deserves all the credit that he's going to get, the accolades he's going to get, but all the credit ultimately should go to Leigh Wood. The 6 weeks notice thing, if you're fit, that should be enough. I think we all go mad about, the 12-week training camp. Someone's made up this 12-week. No, that's the 12-week training camp thing. God, 6 weeks. I've never had 6 weeks I had 6 weeks one training camp and I got beat up. But it's like, if you're naturally fit and not living a bad life, then 6 weeks should be fine, to be honest. And I think that's proved that. He's a guy who doesn't overindulge. He's not always looks like he's always fit. And 6 weeks to get the tactics into place, as long as you're fit, then your base fitness is already there, then that 6 weeks is plenty. And also you don't overthink things as well. I think you're stuck on a strict schedule to get it right. And I think it's if anything, that probably helped them. But yeah, you're right though. I think Zhu Can looked disappointed. But when you're a volume puncher, you've got to be in range to throw. And if you've got a solid jab hitting you in the face and a solid right hand whacking you every time you move your feet an inch, that can slow you down a bit, and that's what you have to do. You have to slow him down, and the jab's the best weapon. I think he used that, with full effect tonight. And so you have, Zhu Can was disappointing, but you have to give Leigh Wood his credit. You have to, because you only based the fight on his last fight, and now he's proved, and he never looked anywhere near it. Let's be honest, he's proved he's not world class.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It's the weight, in that you wondered if at 6 weeks, it's a tough cut for anyone, and I'm sure Leigh Wood is cutting as well. But because in 6 weeks, if you're boiling badly in that 6 weeks and just battling, and then you have to fight a relentless pressure fighter like that, a volume puncher rather, was my concern for him. But he was obviously fit. He was kind of not too north of the weight and could do it in 6 weeks. And like you say, they put together a game plan. I mean, the game plan also included, by the way, switching southpaw and boxing him from there as well. I mean, it was just class. It was just,
he never boxed a volume puncher.
No,
that's so well. He's boxed so well. He turned the volume puncher into a tentative counter puncher.
Yeah,
that's the tactics are so good that he didn't box the fight that he was meant to fight. I think, and that's down to his tactics, surely, or his and Ben's tactics. So I think they couldn't have done anything any better. They got caught with a few shots, but he took them well. He wasn't worried at all, really. And I think and the stoppage, he didn't need it, as you agree with me. But to finish that, just to put the cherry on the cake, that was just fantastic. And boxing's a funny sport because it can just change your life like that, both ways, by the way, up and down, and literally the 36 minutes to change your life. And people, you say it, but it's true, because you'll never be the same again. Whether he's a regular champion, I don't know how people look at it, but he's been announced as a world champion. That's the thing you dream on as a kid. Them saying the new whatever title it is, champion of the world, and your name. That's it. That's your lifetime ambition. And to have that called out is just, you're never the same again. You're never the same. and you want that for every fighter that you do. You do. It's never going to happen for most, but you want that for every fighter. And Leigh Wood's had that tonight. And we're worried about the politics and all that. For right now, he feels he got a belt in his hand. He's had that iconic thing said to you that every fighter dreams of. It's happened to him tonight. He had his hand raised with the new champion of the world. It's been said you get a belt, you go home and you're just like, my life's done. I've done it. I've done it. Like, and you just can't put a price on that feeling. Honestly, you can't.
Just one more word on the tactics. I think we've got to give credit as well to Lee Wiley, who, again, someone who Ben Davison took on board. Most boxing fans knew him as the guy who broke down moments in fights on Twitter and YouTube and whatever else. But he's been brought into a camp now, and he's obviously at the heart of the tactics and looking at the opponent and seeing. And it's the new style of boxing. It's a new style of sport, isn't it? Looking at the opponents and trying to find weaknesses as much as preparing your own fighter. And I think it's paying dividends. And when a performance and the tactics and the game plan, which we've spoken about a lot, sometimes the game plan gets overused and over credited. But what we saw tonight was absolutely bang on breakdown of an opponent, stripped him away of all of his assets, made him look totally ordinary. And then it meant that Leigh Wood's strengths came through. So yeah, Lee Wiley as well deserves massive credit.
Well, a game plan has to be fluid because he reacts to what you do. So, it's faction is the most reactive sports you can find. So you can't have a rigid game plan because things don't always go to plan. So you have to have quite loose, but you can go in there with a thought. Who's paying Lee Wiley? That's my first thought as a fighter. He's worth his weight. He's a fantastic addition, but you're paying your trainer to do all this for you. So if you're paying extra, I'd be like, well, hang on a minute, Ben, you should be doing this. I'm joking. That's cynical, of course. Listen, if he's had that input that gets you over the line, then he's whatever he gets, he's worth being in the camp. He really is, and to get a bit of credit as well. This is all the credit's Leigh Wood's, but all the guys involved, as Ben said in the interview after, we're just here to help the fighter reach his potential, to do the best he can do, and that's a humble way, but it's an honest way, and it's nice to see that he's not going, I need all the credit, and I'm a great trainer. He might think that, but he's just being honest and saying it's about the fighter. He has to do it, and that's true. He has to do it. You can tell him everything he needs to know. If he can't do it, he can't do it. So it's, again, I think that Ben has, whatever the people call him, or he's only had fighters come who are already good fighters. You can say that about every pro trainer. The amateur trainers should take all the credit if that's the case, but you have to find that he taps into that fighter. He gets the understanding right with the fighter. Him and the fighter, he knows what he finds out what the fighter can do, and he gives him a tool, the right tactics, what he can do for himself. He's not asking Leigh Wood to do something that he can't do. There's certain things you can do to win a fight, but that fighter can't do that. So trying to get him to do something he can't do, which just means he's just gonna, theoretically get beat even badly. So he gets him doing what you can do, the best thing you could do to win that fight. That's what he does. He enhances the fighter's abilities. I guess that's Ben Davison's superpower.
We do seem to be we're beginning to get to a point where, or certainly more and more people are binning off the belts. That's the common phrase and the popular phrase. But we are seeming to move away from this obsession, I guess, with that boxing has with belts. And as you said, Barry, try telling the people who paid £750 to be ringside tonight supporting Leigh Wood that he's not a world champion. But maybe more than being a world champion is that he now has so many options, right? If he'd lost tonight, maybe he fights the loser of Galahad Dickens next week, in a chief support on a smaller card. But now, assuming there's no rematch clause, I don't know. But he now has options, right? And at 32 years of age, he's not the youngest, not the oldest, but, towards the end of his career rather than the start. The point now, Declan, is that he has options and a chance to make some real money as well.
Yeah, I think when Barry was alluding to it there, all that, about being announced and the new and all that sort of stuff, then if you just flip that completely, obviously the devastation of missing that opportunity, but you're right, back of the queue then. And then where do you go? Because it's not like Leigh Wood's a huge name or anything like that. Or, it's the same with Reece Mould. Like, if Reece Mould had won that fight against him back on the Warrington undercard, then he would be the one in this position or whatever. So what's Reece Mould doing? So the victory has just propelled him. Not only is he the champion now, or a champion, whether you care about the belts or not, but now you're just thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing Leigh Wood fight again. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. And the opportunities now are really pretty, they're vast for him, because he doesn't even have to leave England, and he's got big fights and getting paid well for it. The belt, I don't know what that does, what currency that really holds, that regular belt. I don't know if it pushes him towards Santa Cruz. I'm not really sure if the WBA, they don't really care about that, do they? It's not, these interim or the regular belts are sort of glorified eliminators almost, but it's not like they lead you anywhere necessarily. I'm not sure. I'm sure that they'll be looking at what makes the most money at this point. Like you say, at 32, he wants to be making hay now. And there's some hay to be made. He'll have a keen eye on Warrington Lara, which is a really exciting fight for everyone, because so many intangibles there. Leigh Wood against either of those guys straight away. A Warrington fight would be huge in England. But if Lara, then what if Lara wins again? A crack at the guy who beat Warrington twice, massive. You mentioned the rematch would, if you're Zhu Can right now, are you fancying that again? It didn't look like he wanted to be here at any point today. And sometimes you say that about someone and they go and chin their guy, and it doesn't really matter. But does he really want to come back and have another fight with Leigh Wood? Probably not. But I'd watch it, and I'm sure Leigh Wood would take it, take the money, and win again, win well, and then move on. But you're right, exciting, and it's great for us to have someone else that's in the mix now, come from nowhere. 2 months ago, we weren't talking about Leigh Wood having a world title shot. We were sort of wondering what he was doing, and now he's right up there and one of the names in British boxing, and that can only be good things for us as boxing fans, first and foremost.
And also, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets elevated, because Santa Cruz has been boxing out at different weights. I can't remember the last time he boxed as a featherweight. I generally can't remember the last time he boxed as a featherweight. So there's a chance, there's an argument there, and I think Eddie Hearn should be pushing for them to be elevated to the only champion they have, and that would all of a sudden then he is a genuine world champion, because I think people only see the super champion as the real world champion, and then that gives him more credence and more to move on. I think there's so many good fights for him out there, dangerous fights, but also domestic. We all love to see domestic world level fights, and there's a pick. There's 4 fighters right now. If one of them gets the win, of course, you got Jazza Dickens and Kid Galahad, whoever wins that, but even the losers still world class. And then you got Warrington in the mix as well, and they're all sort of easily, you would think, easy fights to make. But also, more importantly, and you sort of said that, Declan, is I'm going to call you Taylor then. Taylor, son. Is that it was a good fight to watch.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's all about selling yourself in the market, and I think it was the launch of the Zone, and it was a really good fight to watch. It was constantly exciting. He was never negative at all. Even though he was trying to box, he was always being proactive. He was always looking to work. There was a gap there, a chance for him to throw combinations. He was willing to throw. He was throwing hard shots, and he had the guy walking right at him, which is good for him. But I think it was an enjoyable fight to watch, and so he sold himself there, because if you're an armchair fan, not a boxing fanatic, you would have enjoyed that, and you'd want to see Leigh Wood again, and that's what it's all about, I think. And I think Eddie Hearn will not want to be pushing him now, because forget about the title. He's got an exciting fighter to sell to the public, and that's more important, as we know. That's more important to the promoter than any title. Is a guy who can draw interest from the public, and with a new platform, constantly need new subscribers, however many they have, then that's a fantastic tool and a fantastic bargaining tool financially for Leigh Wood.
And you mentioned the Fab Four at featherweight, but there's a 5th one in Jordan Gill. I'm pretty sure as well. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure he's holds some sort of belt with the WBA. I think he's up to those.
Yes, rankings. He does. Yes, he does.
So he's another one. I know they know he knows Leigh Wood well, but he's right there, and he's another one that, a bit like Leigh Wood, that right now he's sort of underappreciated, and he had a defeat and he's sort of working his way back. He had COVID and all that sort of stuff, but he's only a couple of fights away from being right up there, and that'd be a great fight. The way that he moves and stuff against any of those guys as well. So it's exciting times. Or if you're Leigh Wood, you go, get me Santa Cruz, I'll go and fight him in MSG or whatever. And this legacy, dreams are made of stuff. And who knows how he'd get on against Santa Cruz, because we don't know what he's got left. And after the knockout against Davis and all that sort of stuff. And straight from out of nowhere, he's there. Yeah, so it really interesting to see what he does next.
So Leigh Wood stole the show, but earlier on in the chief support, Chris Billam-Smith edged a split decision in his British, European and Commonwealth Cruiserweight title fight against Tommy McCarthy. He was given the nod 115, 114 and 116, 112. McCarthy given the nod on the third card, 115, 114. A nip and tuck fight, 116, 112, a tad wide perhaps, but right winner, wrong winner?
I'd say the right winner for me, to be honest. And that 116, 112 is not a wide card. It's in a close fight. You can get a swing like that because all the rounds are quite competitive. I wouldn't have argued about that, and I wouldn't have argued maybe the other way possibly. So I thought Smith just did enough. I think it's what's quite important in a fight like that. Sometimes the guy who keeps his shape tends to get more credit for some of his work, whether it's right or wrong. It's just because it looks neater. So it's easy for the judge to see it and score it. That's all that is sometimes. Where Tommy McCarthy's a little bit looser with his work and a little bit more because his hands are a little bit low and things are maybe more flicky at times, then you notice the shots right on the track. And I guess that's where Billam-Smith got the nod. But it was a hard fight from the offset. And I think it made it a good fight because they were both, especially defensively, naive. To be honest, not thinking about neither one of them thought about what they were going to do after they threw the shot. That's the truth. You had McCarthy because he landed that big right hand to start at the beginning of the fight. Then that was his honey shot all the way through the fight, but it really didn't work after that. Really, if he had such a great effect, but then he tried too hard to land it. And Billam-Smith, when he lands a big shot, he holds his feet and gets caught, or leans back in straight lines and gets hit again. So the lack of defensive intelligence on the both of them made it a sort of a good fight to watch for us. Really, that was made it hard for them, but good for us, which was what we pay for. But yeah, I think they both could box better, to be honest. But I quite enjoyed it. But I think the right winner was Billam-Smith, and I think I think McCarthy's corner was screaming a little bit, and I can't see how you can see that in a close fight. You must have known it was close. How can you throw your arms up in the air like you're being robbed? I just don't see it that way. I don't see it that way anyway. I don't know how you guys perceived it.
I did think McCarthy maybe edged it by one.
You're wrong.
You're right.
You're wrong. Nope.
You're right. 116, 112 becomes 115, 113 very easily, and so forth. I guess just because the first two were a point, and then sometimes people think 4 is too many. Deck, which side were you on?
I had it Billam-Smith by 1 as well. I thought he clearly started slowly, got hit bad, and he's super fit. He's into CrossFit and all this sort of stuff. I mean, you only have to look at him, but he looked knackered in the second round. I was like, this kid looks knackered now. So the way he pulled it back round, obviously the clash of heads caused the cut. I was slightly disappointed, not disappointed, but I was slightly surprised maybe that he didn't jump on that a bit more and start aiming for it a bit more with the left hook, because it was bothering him, especially when it first happened. They did a great job on it in the end. It didn't turn into an issue. But when it first happened, it looked like this could be, they might have pulled this completely because it was streaming in his eye and it was clearly a head clash. But yeah, I agree with Barry that it's just all a bit cleaner, really, from Billam-Smith. And it was all a bit more sustained from him. And then it was McCarthy with the flashes, which we sort of expected, to be honest. I'd like to see it again, personally. I thought it had the potential to be very cagey and a bit of a non-event because of how much was on the line for both of them. Not only the hardware, but the fact that the winner goes on and the loser sort of doesn't. I thought it might be a cagey one. It clearly wasn't, but it was it was action from the start. It was a great fight. You sort of struggle to see where Billam-Smith goes from here, even as the winner, because you sort of think both of them are some way off, like Lawrence Okoli, for instance, who's his mate and is in the same stable. But, it's a tough division at the top. He's now a European, Commonwealth, British champion. It's like, well, the next step now is the world champions. And you just think that seems like a big step from this point. Sometimes with a lot of divisions, it's not a big step, actually. And you're there. He doesn't seem to be there yet. So I'd love to see him run it back. And I think Billam-Smith would be a handier winner in the rematch, to be honest. But yeah, I guess he made a point that he wouldn't think McCarthy would take it straight away. I bet he would. They're going to be hurting tonight. Great little side story with Frampton coming over and all of that. I mean, it's just classic. I don't know. You could just. It's just that little bit of needle and tension is superb.
And they used him for the to check on the gloves in as well, which was been a really awkward like 10, 15, 20 minutes.
One fight we don't need to match make is Anthony Fowler against Liam Smith. That will take place in Liverpool on October 9th. Same night, possibly, as Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder later on, of course. Anthony Fowler coming away last night now with victory over Rico Muller. A good fight for Liverpool. Good fight for the UK, I guess.
I don't know. I'd like to hear what both you think, but I still think Liam Smith, based on his last outing against what's his face, Kurbanov, where he was great. It was a great fight. It was a good performance that night. He's got plenty left. It's not. This doesn't seem like one of those ones against a faded name. He seems like he's got a lot left, and Fowler's still got a lot to. He's a lot of improving to do. Nowhere near the finished article. I think it's a really, really dangerous fight for Fowler.
See, I think Liam who he won't age. I know the way he fights, most fighters think, he's just going to get old overnight. You can't fight like that forever. But I think he's one of those weird fighters who just, until he retires, he's going to go, he's full capacity. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he has the wear and tear that he should have for the hard fights that he has had. And I think I look at that two ways. I think it's a massive step up for Fowler. Maybe a step he has to take at some point, but they're either cashing out on Fowler. Maybe he hasn't been the star they thought he was. This is just me guessing. The star they thought he would be, or financially hasn't, they haven't got the money back. I don't know, or they're banking on a massive decline in Liam Smith, which I watched that Kurbanov fight and I thought he won quite clear. And it was a hard fight, but I thought he was the only winner for me. I think he got really turned over, and he still looks fresh enough.
Yeah.
And he's incredibly tough. And he knows how to get inside. He knows a lot of tricks, and he's a better boxer than you give him credit for. And I just think that Fowler's punches you into submission like he did tonight. And I thought Fowler was pretty good tonight, but he can be hit, and that would be the worry. I think it's a real step up. But listen, hey, we all got to take a step up at some point, and it's a fight that sells because it's obviously two guys from Liverpool, and there'll be and Liam Smith, when he gets into fight mode, he's quite a nasty character.
Yeah.
And I think that it'll ignite before they get in the ring. So I think commercially it's a good fight, but I think it's a real risk for Fowler. But listen, he's a confident kid, one of the most confident fighters you could see. Even when people point out his obvious flaws, he's still super confident. So he'll fancy it. But I'm with you, Declan. I think if they're banking on Liam Smith, seeing better days, then I think you have to go in with a different realization of how good Liam Smith still is.
I think it's a proper sink or swim job, isn't it? And I don't know, cashing out is probably a bit strong, but it's one of them where they're gone, okay, we've done what we can with you. He lost to Fitzgerald. They rebuilt him, and it's like, okay, right, you just got to go and try it. Now we got to try it and see where you're at. But I do think there are better options for him. There's the Fitzy rematch. There's Cheeseman. I know that there was an Eggington fight, which I think Eggington withdrew. I'm not sure of that, but it might be. But there are a lot of fights there. It's not like they're struggling for opponents, so that's why I was slightly surprised by it. It makes great sense now, like it, because two guys from Liverpool at the same weight, one's coming up, a crossroads fight, and all that stuff. I just feel like there would have been a safe is the wrong word, but a more appropriate fight at this point before looking at someone like Beefy, because he's had grey hair since he was 10, like me. He looks older than he is. People think he's been around forever, but he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's not faded in any way.
And whatever happens in that fight, that's a miles on the clock fight.
100%.
He'll make it a hard Smith. Even if Smith were to get beat, and I'd make Smith a big favourite for me. He'll make it hard, and if you lose, it's a hard loss. You're getting bashed up a little bit if that happens, because the way he fights. So he makes every fight a hard fight. So it'll put miles on the clock for you, and also or take away your confidence because he might beat you up, and that. But tonight I thought Fowler was good. That kid should have been saved 25 punches before the fight got stopped for me. I'm not criticising the referee because it's a very hard job, but that's the way I felt watching it. And you guys probably did also. But he beats you into submission, Fowler. That's what he does. He's physically strong, a little bit slower hand. He can work on hand speed a bit more, but he looked good tonight. And it was a good get the ring rust off. And I say he's a confident kid. Confidence, can take you so far sometimes. And also you suddenly do just have to chuck yourself into it. You're never going to know until you take that leap. And if he thinks he's ready for that leap, and they think that Smith might be on his way down or not, then that might be the fight. You beat Liam Smith, and you're getting a world title shot next. You're pretty much certain of that. So we all want to be a world champion, and if that's the fight you've got to take, I would take it, to be honest. And knowing the risks and how hard it is, if he was in my way of getting a world title shot, then I'd want to go through him. I'd actually want to go around him, to be honest, but that's just me. But most fighters would want to go through him, and I think to Anthony Fowler's credit, he's that sort of kid. You want to go through him and challenge himself. But I'm with you, Declan. I agree. I think it's they're thinking that Smith is on his way out. Then it could be a real slipper.
You've got to say credit to Fowler because we do often, complain about people not taking fights and taking easy options and not fighting and hanging around. So massive credit to him. And he's just had his first child, so I hope he gets some kit because he's going to have a mad 12 weeks now. And then what is it? October? Did you say, Martin? So what were you away? 3?
It's not far, is it?
It's only 12 weeks away. He's in the midst of it when he gets back on Monday morning. So hopefully they got something sorted there. Generally, boxers do tend to have a spare room. I'm sure he's got a decent spare room with some egg.
He was on in Kent, wasn't he, with the McGuigans?
Good point. He could just get away. Yeah.
He'd be telling his missus he's fighting. I got to fight next week.
Maybe it is part of the zone's new. Maybe there is a new ethos that if you're not going to be in fights that not only mean something but add a bit of a step up, maybe you are going to be binned off, and maybe that's it's not just hot air this time.
Imagine a broadcaster paying the promoter good money for shows, and then saying that fight's not good enough. Are we in that? Is that happening? Because that hasn't happened for a long time. I don't think. We've seen some fantastic fights, in recent years, but also it looks like to me a lot of promoters have been able to just put what they want on, and the TV companies have just accepted it, either the lack of knowledge or lack of effort for the argument. I don't know, because but my pay grade. But is the zone actually going to say? Are they already saying we want that fight or no fight?
Well, look, they did it with Canelo, didn't they, in America with the marquee or whatever the term was in the contract that he had to fight a certain number of. So they were already putting stipulations on. They're putting a huge amount of money into it. I know for a fact that they were not keen on, I think it was Danny Jacobs or something, a big name, but he wasn't quite doing it. And he wasn't quite, they can look at numbers. Now they look at numbers, They look at subscribers and whatnot. So maybe that is right, Martin. And he's got a plethora of fighters. It's not like he's got 3 guys and he needs to just manage them and make sure that they're headlining every 4 weeks or whatever it is. He's got all these fighters and he needs to decide who the one that they're going to back and who's going where. So he almost has that luxury. I'm talking about Eddie Hearn here, where he can have guys getting beaten, but some of them are going to win those big step up fights, like Leigh would, and then they go on. Fowler wins this fight if he wins this fight, goes on, like you say, next fight's a world title shot. Straight away, he's got another star in his hands. You've got at least one massive night on the zone. So I think you might be right, Barry. Maybe it's a slight change in. I mean, they call it game change, don't they? I mean, we're still here at 11:30. I thought it might start a bit earlier, but can't have it all.
Just a quick word on the zone. We spoke about it off air. It didn't, listen, I know it's Eddie Hearn's back garden. There's only so much you can do with a lawn, right? I mean, that's the bottom line here. It looked nice. There were new presenters. It was certainly fresh in that respect. But overall, a similar, showing to what we had with Sky at the moment. There
wasn't enough diversity. I didn't hear one Welsh voice, and it was fine. I think you can get too carried away with what's going on. It's the fights that count. The commentary was good enough. The presenters were fine. Tony Bell, who knows the sport, Maya Jama, she did a fine job. She didn't try and make out she was a boxing expert. She asked the guy who knows about boxing a question. That's her job. I don't see it. I watched the show before the show, and I didn't like that. That was too. I mean, all the people working there were fantastic, but it was like a carnival. There was like about 15 presenters. It was just too much for me. But maybe that's for a younger audience who like all that sort of stuff. I'm an old man, so. But the actual live boxing it's all about the fights. I think the packaging's important, but obviously the product for me is what counts. So the fights were good enough. You couldn't argue with that. I think Jack Cullen looked well. There was a good little scraps. You know what I mean? And that's all you cared about. Ultimately, that's what we ended up talking about. So it was a good Stafford zone. It wasn't a game changing, no extravaganza that they promised, but it was good enough. For 199, it was absolutely fantastic.
It kind of felt to me like it was very similar, but like you sort of alluded to, Barry, that the product still is the same as two people punching each other. And it's like, what can you really do around that? To be honest, Sky had a winning formula. It's the same that all broadcasters have, and that's a bit of razzmatazz, a couple of fireworks. But in the end of it, you need to have people fighting and having entertaining fights in the middle of it. I had a nightmare with sorting out like my operating systems, get the app on my laptop and then casting it and all that business. I was just like, I wish this was on Sky still, because you just have to press a button. But I think there'll be a bit of that to start. I kept getting like a barcode up on my screen every.
Yeah, it was well. Yeah. It
was just a bit bizarre. I think the game changed.
That was free beer. You don't get it.
You have to
scan it. Oh, I've had about 14 pints. I don't even drink.
Next to like Windows 95, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Felt like that. I think the game change thing, hopefully, is what they mean by that is the amount of money and the regularity and the opportunities that they're going to get for fighters over the course of however many years. That's what they mean by game changed, rather than the night is, because it was basically the same, wasn't it? I mean, Andy Lee and Chris Lloyd did a great job too. They're going to have Mike Costello, the GOAT, from when he gets back from the Olympics. It's all set up to be great, but it's boxing, isn't it? It's boxing at the end of it. And yeah, they can't really change that much.
My biggest worry when Eddie Hearn was on about, creating a narrative, and storylines, was that it was going to be just a propaganda channel. That every boxer who was a matchroom on the A side was all about him, and it was just, he's great. And you just keep telling people the same thing and they believe it. But it wasn't that, to be fair. It wasn't that. That Andy Lee was allowed to do his job, and that was important. And Tony Bellew did a good enough job. It wasn't all. It's all about the home fighter, but so it sort of should be, really, because that's the fight you're promoting. But when the fights are going on, I thought the commentary was fair assessment, and that's all you can ask for, to be honest.
Just one final thing. I've just seen the scorecards. Leigh Wood was at 107-102, so by 5 on 2 cards and by 3 on the final one going into the final round. So seems like it was scored fairly, and he would have won regardless. But I did mention Jack Cullen. He outpointed Avni Yildirim. It was a third professional victory for Campbell Hatton and a first for Sandy Ryan, who made her debut. Which brings us to the end of this week's show. Next weekend, as we said, is another featherweight world title fight between Jazza Dickens and Kid Galahad.
Got to pray for no COVID.
Well, that is true.
We won Jazza Dickens to win, and it's worth a minute. The reason being, when I won a world title, I wasn't the best fighter in my street. It's because Steve Robinson used to live in my street when I was a kid, so I'm not even the best fighter in my street. So I used to look about where I was the best fighter, and obviously I won the best Welsh fighter because Steve Robinson, and I went through history, and obviously the better Welsh fighters than me. My grandfather's parents were from Scotland and Ireland, and they have had great fighters. But my mother's father's from the Yemen, so I thought I'm the best boxer from the Yemen. But of course, there was a Nazim Hamid, so I'm not even the best boxer from the Yemen. So I was the best boxer from the Yemen called Barry.
Oh no!
And Kid Galahad wins the world title. I'm not even the best boxer from the Yemen called Barry. So come on, Jazza, please. This is the only thing I got going for me. This is the only thing I got going for me. The only bit of credibility I got left is I'm the only best boxer from the Yemen called Barry, unless Kid Galahad wins the world title, because his name's obviously Barry, which will be disappointing. Lovely kid, but I'll be, this is my legacy I'm worried about.
Well, I did not expect that, but now that you said it, that is up there with better than most reasons for someone to win a fight. We will be back actually on the Monday It's my fault. But we're back on the Monday after the Saturday to recap and then to look ahead, I guess, to the third weekend of Fight Camp. So do join us then if you can. And until then, take care.